But now it's too late. There we go, we're live. Hello and welcome to the Top Corner Podcast, episode number 29. Joining me, as always, we have Kieran D, we have Kieran L, and we have Rowan. How are we all?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am ecstatic.
I'm not too bad myself. I can see we're all ready for some football because the good news is we have waited so long for this. It's been a long time coming. The Premier League's back, Serie's back. All of football apart from Ligue 1 is back pretty much. Of course, Ligue 1 has decided to end its season because, no offence, it's... I think, did just before we go on to like the main topics, do we think Ligue 1 maybe called the season a little bit too early?
Yeah.
Roman's shaking his head saying no.
One league had to take a risk and say we're not risking the league coming back. It's just sort of make a statement, and unfortunately, it's happened as everything's right. But we could be looking at a different situation where we're saying our legal were right to postpone it. So
they don't help themselves though when we say Ligue 1's not as good as the other top 5 leagues, because like the other 4, we say the more competitive leagues have all come back to try and finish the season. I guess in Ligue 1, there wasn't really that much to play for. I know you said the European spots were quite tight, but you know who your champion is. At least with the Bundesliga, it were close for a couple of weeks before we came back in. I know it's different in the Prem. We could have quite easily said Liverpool are champions. I don't think anyone would have batted an eyelid at all. But like, it's one of them. I agree with Rowan to the extent of, if things would have gone a completely different way, they would have been in the right. But we talked about, I think last night, Bundesliga need the credit they deserve for taking the jump and showing everyone that it can be done. Whereas Ligue 1 took the opportunity of, we'll show everyone we don't have to do it.
It comes back to Rowan's point that he said at first that, you know, somebody has to take the first punt pretty much, whether it be starting the league up or ending it. And in both ways, you're absolutely right, because it could be in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe Rowan, with his point there, is absolutely correct. And, you know, if there is a second spike of cases, it goes back to square one again. But we've got a couple of people. Oh, I'll let you go, Rowan.
We're getting positive tests in the Championship and the Premier League still. It's one of them things, in it. Like, these positive tests might not yield anything. No other players might be infected. Yet, we might get a lot of more infections due to it. I think Bundesliga's been very lucky that I don't think there's really been any of them cases, but
I think the only confirmed cases were I think just before the actual whole league set up again. I think it was one of the Bundesliga 2 sides, I think. So
go on. The situation with the Norwich one was strange though, because he played in a friendly against Spurs, but then it got found out he had coronavirus, but none of the others have to get tested because he wasn't in contact with them long enough, because apparently it has to be 20 minutes. I don't really understand. I thought it was like, if you come into contact, everyone needs to kind of spread, whereas it's kind of, they've gone, nah, he wasn't there long enough, it's fine, don't worry. I don't know, was he brought on as a sub with 2 minutes to go? We don't know like what the case was really with that guy.
That's the thing, no one knows, because the guidelines haven't been clear, so...
It's one of those, isn't it? Because I think, I'm pretty sure they're saying for players they have to make their own way to the stadium and that. So realistically speaking, of course, the usual aspect of getting a match day coach or bus or whatever isn't usually happening. So the players, realistically speaking, will probably just come into contact with each other as they're getting into the changing room and getting changed. So maybe there's not enough contact to there be a situation where they have to test everyone. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure as a football club, you'd want to test everyone to make sure, just in case, on the offside. Because if next week we come back and we say, oh, well, we've now got 3 cases that come from Norwich, it comes back to the point we're making now.
I know they're doing rounds of testing, but for me personally, I know the UFC, when they've got a card, the week leading up, it's daily. Everyone's getting tested daily. I think surely we were at the same level of America in terms of funding and medicine. We're as close as we're going to get to that. So surely... they're going to be, I think daily testing would have been smarter than what it is now. But that's me. I don't know about the rounds and stuff like that.
It's all confusing. But the great thing is football is finally back. And today we've got a very... Rowan, I think, do you want to say something beforehand?
No, we're going to the big boy leagues. Today, the Vanarama the 5th and 6th division are voting on whether playoffs are occurring. So I was talking to my granddad earlier today when I was outside about, because Halifax are our local club. I don't think since I've been alive they've not been in the second League Two or even in professional status. Maybe they're a new club that was created in 2005 off the previous Halifax team that went bankrupt. So this is quite a big decision for these Panorama teams, because if these playoffs do go ahead, this decides whether your team is going to earn a lot of money that can keep you afloat next season.
Well, that's the thing. If you look at
big boy leagues,
if you look at like League One and League Two clubs, for example, some of them are already financially stricken. So you compare League One and League Two clubs to a team that are a couple of division downs, as you perfectly said there. It is going to be a situation where that cash is very pivotal to a club. But we've got a couple of comments coming in. Bernaldo is in the building. He says, let's go. We're back in action. How are you, Bernaldo? Welcome in. And Chris is in the building. He says, hi, lads. Hope you are all well. Welcome in, Chris. I hope we're all good. As you can see at the bottom, things are a little bit different. StreamYard's kind of updated itself. You can see at the bottom all the content that we've got on the channel. So we've got Monday, the Wrestling Corner. We've got Wednesday, our podcast. I put Thursday for the NFL for now because I was kind of like, well, do I just put question mark for the NFL Corner and leave it?
I was waiting for it to scroll across and just say, anytime, and then he's like,
whenever you want it to be, they'll do it, apart from mornings. But yeah, you can keep out for all of the content there, but I'll take that off for now, so it's not hogging the screen. But we've got plenty of stuff to come today. We're going to talk about the games of last week, of course, and we've got a lot of games to talk about this week across Europe. So I think without further ado, boys, should we get into it straight away? We'll talk about last week's fixtures. I'm going to very, very briefly go over these very quickly because, of course, last week we talked about Serie. I think the majority of people right now will want to know about the Premier League and everything else that's going on. So we'll go over these very slightly. As I said, these predictions we made last week, they weren't properly done. Of course, we've got our Bundesliga predictions to make a little bit later on. But we'll start off with our first game we talked about, which was Sevilla versus Betis. Of course, Sevilla are in third place as it stands. Real Betis, as of last week, were 12th. They actually lost this game. It was the opening fixture for the Liga to come back. And Sevilla would claim the first 3 points in their return. Goals came from Lucas Ocampos, who is Sevilla's top goal scorer this season. And ex-Man City midfielder Fernando as well. He got a goal to his name. The results going their way elsewhere for the bottom teams below Sevilla. So that was Atletico Madrid, Real Sociedad, a couple of other clubs as well. It means that Sevilla actually do continue to sit third. They're currently on 49 points, maybe more because they might have played in the meantime since we last did the episode. Of course, most teams playing twice a week. As for Real Betis, they dropped to 13th, 8 points in front of the relegation zone. Very, very quick question about Real Betis. They're 8 points above the relegation zone. Of course, La Liga's a little bit behind the Bundesliga. Could a team like Real Betis potentially drop towards a relegation battle, or do you think maybe 8 points at this stage would be enough for a side in 13th?
You never know, do you? Because like we said it in Bundesliga, like, well, there's a chance that Dortmund and Leipzig can win the league and look Bayern are the champions. Same with sort of the relegation. Paderborn have got a chance. Well, I said Paderborn have got a chance. They are out. But then you flip it again. I mean, we can only really talk about sort of what we can compare it to current football. So you've got Werder Bremen, who are now can survive, fortunately Dusseldorf, who can survive. So there's a chance. When there's a chance, there is always a chance with it. But there is much in 8 points, is there? There's only 3 losses.
Pretty much, yeah. And there's a couple of teams below them that you'd expect to be a little bit higher. For example, Eibar, a side that have been lingering around the top 10 for the last couple of years. They're down in the relegation spots, towards them. I think they're a point or two off. Celta Vigo as well, they're down there. You expect them usually to be towards the mid-table and towards European spots. So anything can really go. And as I said, because these teams are playing a lot, for this week's games, it's very hard to pick out specific matches. I mean, there's a game we're going to talk about a little bit later on that I've completely forgot was even being played. There's just that much football going on right now. So there will be some big games missing. For example, Real Madrid, they played Valencia this week. Big game on paper. We don't even have time to talk about that just because there's so many other big fixtures going on. But we're going to our next game from last week, Celta Vigo versus Villarreal. This one was very dramatic. As I said a moment ago, Celta Vigo, they're down towards the relegation spots, desperate to survive this season, of course. They were down there last season, fighting. And they lost in the 92nd minute. Manu Trigueros with a late goal. There was literally, I think, about 30 seconds of the game left. And he was able to smash it in. Now, Celta Vigo, they actually only had 3 shots in the whole game. None of them were on target. And they were pretty happy to sit back for the majority of the 90th minutes and just basically defend and try and nick a point. But Villarreal, they stood tall. They had about, I think, 11 shots overall, 7 on target. They got a winner in the end, courtesy of Manu Trigueros, the Spanish midfielder, who's been getting back into the game a little bit more. He's, of course, a couple of months ago, I think he picked up an injury, was out. He's back now playing football. As for Villarreal, they're sitting 5 points away now from Atletico Madrid's 6th. I think it was a couple of, in last week's podcast, I think I said they were 8 points away, and it looked very unlikely that they'd get back into it. But it perfectly comes back to Roman's point a moment ago that it really can change instantly. You know, one team can drop points and another team can come out and nowhere and gain points. And just like that, Villarreal have been fantastic. As for Celta Vigo, they sit 17th, 1 point above the relegation zone. They're only 3 points from the bottom. The bottom of the league is very, very tight. I think there's 5 teams separated by 4 points. It's really, really tight down there. So anyone can stay up in that division. And talking about a team that's desperate to survive, this was the last game we talked about in terms of the league. It was Mallorca versus Barcelona. And as pretty much we all predicted, Mallorca got battered 4-0 by Barcelona. It took 2 minutes for Vidal to come back and score the first goal for Barcelona. 2 minutes for false 9 Vidal. Messi scored as well. He scored late on. I think it was the 92nd minute. Another goal came from Jordi Alba. He scored in the 79th minute. And Martin Braithwaite as well, of course, signed on an emergency deal from Leganes. He picked up another goal for Barcelona. He scored previously before the break to make it 3-0 to Barcelona. And then, of course, as I said before, Jordi Alba made it 4-0 late on. As for Barcelona, they sit top of the league still. They've got a big fixture, which we will be talking about a little bit later on in the show. And Mallorca, they are in the relegation zone as it stands. They sit 18th, 1 point away from survival. So La Liga's battle for survival right now is very, very tight. Some good teams down there. I think coming back to Celta Vigo very, very quickly. Are they destined for relegation? As I said before, last season they were in the relegation zone and they pretty much survived within the last 2 match days. It's looking like things are going the same way again. Do we think, with the quality of some players that they've got, including Iago Aspas, who's been fantastic for them in the last couple of years, do we think they can survive, or is this the doomsday call to drop down?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of football still to play. That's all I'll say. There's people can pick up points here and there. People will drop points here and there. It's their first game. I wouldn't really go into meltdown over losing 1-0 to Villarreal, even though the circumstances were quite dire for them. They did probably need to win to give themselves a bit of confidence just coming back after the break. But I think they'll be all right. I think they've got the quality in the squad, as you mentioned. They're a better team than the sides around them, even though the stats don't show it. I reckon they'll probably all stay up.
The pressure's on Iago Aspas for me with Celta Vigo, and it always has been. Like last season, without his goals, they wouldn't have had a chance of staying up, in my opinion. So if he just even goes on a couple games with a barren run, I don't know who's going to step up and be the guy for Celta Vigo going forward, and God help if he gets an injury or not. So I agree to the extent of it might be, they've been hanging on for a while now, thanks to Iago Aspas, and they may have just run out of, you've relied on him for far too long for him to keep you. It's a bit like a Aston Villa, really, and how good Grealish has been, because they can't just rely on him and only him. So I agree with Kieran to the extent of you can't worry too much because you've only just come back. Players won't be as fit. Players will be knackered because playing in a game is different to training. But without Iago Aspas firing, I do worry for Celta Vigo a little bit.
They've had problems off the pitch as well. In terms of their attack, they have Santi Mina, formerly of Valencia. He signed at the beginning of the season, hasn't really done much since he's there. They also signed Fedor Smolov of the Russian league on loan. I don't think he's playing for the rest of the season because when the coronavirus kicked off, he was actually found on a yacht in Russia. Which is mental. He apparently not even told the club where he'd gone. So I don't think we'll see Smolov play any more games for Celta Vigo. So as Kim perfectly said, it pretty much is really down to Iago Aspas. He scored 9 goals this season for the club, and a lot of it will be on his shoulders if he can, of course, stay fit and not get injured. But I've gone over these games very, very quickly, as I said, because we have a lot of games to get through today. And I think it's important that we looked at last week's results and we made score predictions. But with so many leagues coming back, there's a lot to catch up on from these leagues in terms of teams playing tonight, for example, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Relegation battles that's still going on in the Bundesliga, of course, that is down to its final 2/3 match days. And we've even got the Serie A, which has returned. Now, before we go on to our fixtures of this week, which our first game we'll talk about is from the Premier League, and that's going to be about the game tonight that's being played. We made a couple of predictions on our score table for last week. Now, you might have noticed that nothing has changed on the score table whatsoever, because a comment Rowan made last week where he said, of course, I'm going to be serious this week in my predictions, might have slightly backfired because we picked out games last week to predict. They were Hoffenheim versus Leipzig, Hertha Berlin versus Frankfurt, and Paderborn versus Werder Bremen. Now, Rowan went for 1-0s across the board. And to be fair, most of us went for 1-0s and 2-0s across the board as well. Werder Bremen versus Paderborn ended 5-1 to Werder Bremen. And Frankfurt and Hertha Berlin ended 4-1 to Frankfurt. And then the Hoffenheim-Leipzig game, I haven't got it with me off the top of my head. If somebody can help me, I think it ended 2-0 to Leipzig.
2-0 Leipzig.
2-0 Leipzig. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So pretty much, in terms of like going goal mad, it might have slightly backfired on us to a certain sense that none of us got any points on the board. Of course, no one was remotely close with the Paderborn result. And nobody was remotely close with the Hertha Berlin-Frankfurt game. The closest we had for the Leipzig-Hoffenheim was KD. You went 2-1 to Leipzig, and Rowan, you also went 1-0 to Leipzig as well. So, realistically speaking, you were both the closest in the sense of the result.
Half points?
Unfortunately, as much as I'd like to give points out, I know you want to go above me, and I know you'd like to put me on the bottom, but I can't give any points out this week. But we will do. I'm sorry, Ron. I'm sorry. I will make another 3 games today. We'll do predictions for those, and then hopefully maybe we can get points. Because, of course, as I said before, we've only got 3 match days left. Realistically speaking, we've only got 2 match days, just because we're doing like the Saturday fixtures and things like that. But we'll go on to before we go on to the actual part of the podcast where we do our games of the week. We've got a quick advertisement from The Athletic. Of course, if you would like to join them, now the football is actually back. They've got loads of world-class writers, including Oliver Kay. And Raphael Honigstein is still writing for the Bundesliga, of course. It's coming down to those last games of the season. But if you would like to join us at The Athletic, it's theathletic.co.uk/sportscorner. You get 50% off your annual subscription and a 7-day free trial. They've been writing a lot of stuff on the WWE recently, so I highly recommend you go over there and check them out. theathletic.co.uk/sportscorner. Link is in the description below. But we'll now move on to games of the week. I've left. Oh, go on, Ron. I'll let you go in.
Before you move on, have you seen the Champions League roadmap for August?
I have, yes. Is it a 12-day tournament they're looking to do?
In August, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, and the 8th are all Champions League round 16s. There's a break. Then the 10th and the 11th are Europa League qualifiers. Then on
the Europa League.
And then on the 12th, the 13th, the 14th, and 15th, it's Champions League quarterfinals. Sorry, it's Europa League quarterfinals. Sorry. On the 16th and 17th, it's Europa League semi-finals. On the 18th and 19th, it's Champions League semi-finals. There's a day break, and then there's the Europa League final. There's another day break, then it's the Champions League final.
Do you know what? We sat there, and obviously we had all that time where we had no games. Isn't it beautiful now to look at the fixture lists across Europe and see that no matter what day it is, there's bound to be a match on?
Do you know what it reminds me of? Do you know when World Cup season comes around and you see that Japan versus like Lebanon is on at like 12:30 and you're like, get in there. but you'll watch it because there's a game on at 12, then 3, then 5. I know Lebanon have never made it to a World Cup. It's just the first nation I thought of. But so that's what it reminds me of, because you just sit there and you can get some snacks, get some drinks, and you don't have to move because it's going to be game after game, especially in the Premier League because they want every game on TV. So I can't wait.
It's beautiful. It's like, do you know when you kind of look at the sport Bible accounts and that, and every couple, like once every few weeks, they put up, oh, this weekend is going to be amazing. You see the big, massive fixture list of the weekend. It pretty much feels like that every single day. You know, at least one fixture within that day is going to be some sort of blockbuster match. And in terms of blockbuster matches, we've got to start with the Premier League. Of course, it's now finally back, one of the final leagues out of the top 5 in Europe to come back. And what a way to start. Of course, the way that the Premier League is working, pretty much, as you perfectly said, Kieran Ellis, they're looking to televise every single game. If you're not aware, there's going to be some fixtures, no offence to the BBC, but pretty much the shittest fixtures are on the BBC. Of course, pickings-wise, they're not going to get the best games in the world. But there's a lot of free games which you can access. There's games on BT Sport, there's games on Sky, there's games on BBC. I think they've got 4 live free fixtures. And then Amazon Prime has also got a batch of fixtures as well. So there's a lot of places showing matches over the next month or so. But we've got to start with the 2 games in hand. Of course, tonight, there are 2 fixtures being played. One kicks off in 40 minutes. That's Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. Today, after that, we have Manchester City versus Arsenal. That kicks off at 8:15. Of course, these 2 sides, it's their game in hand. Second place, Man City, and 9th placed Arsenal. It's a personal battle as well, of course. This is the first time that Pep Guardiola will be facing off against his former assistant on the touchline, Mikel Arteta, of course. He's come back quite good news. He's come back from his coronavirus that he had at the start of before the Premier League was called off. In terms of the sides, Laporte and Sane might be available tonight. I think there was rumours in the works that Sane might actually even be in the lineup tonight, I think, or at least in the actual team itself. So we are going to see a couple of big players back. And of course, as far as I'm aware, Arsenal is pretty much fully fit in general. I haven't really heard of any serious injuries for Arsenal players. So we might see a very fully fit Arsenal side tonight. Game number 1 for the big boys, Man City and Arsenal. What do we think is going to happen in this one? I'm
sick to death of saying that Arsenal will give Man City a good game. I've looked like a tit once. I'm not doing it again. I'm sick of believing in Aubameyang and Lacazette because they're the only 2 good players they have. And I keep believing that they're going to do something. But the time I'll say they won't, I'm sure they'll give them a good game. But I'm going to stick with Man City because, to be fair, they don't really. The only team with something to play for here is Arsenal. Man City, they're going to get top 4, but they're not going to win the league. So it's more about really pride for them. Whereas Arsenal, somehow, with how abysmal they've been this year, that's abysmal with an A, Rowan. Is
bit of play guy. Bye.
They're somehow still in with a shout of getting Europe and maybe even top 4. So
it's mad.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I've got the table up right now. As you perfectly said, Man City, of course, pretty much guaranteed European football next season. Champions League second right now, 57 points. They're as far away as you could possibly be from Liverpool. But in terms of being the distance between second and the Champions League spots, they are 12 points ahead of Manchester United in 5th. 9 points ahead. You could do it. No, plenty of games left. For Arsenal, though, they're 5 points away from 5th place, 8 points away from 4th, which, as you said before, is absolutely ludicrous considering the fact of how terrible they were before.
Yeah, I don't get how they're still there. They've just lingered for ages.
It's bonkers. And I'm going to tie in the other game while we talk about this one on the side. The other game we picked out for this week is Spurs versus Man U, which is on Friday night at 8:15. What a way to start off the Premier League with 2 massive fixtures. How the hell are Spurs in 8th on 41 points, because I've wrote down in my notes for this one, of course, Manchester United, they're going to have a lot of their players back. Pogba and Rashford, we know that they've been out for some time beforehand. They are both coming back from injuries, of course. By the way, side note as well, well done to Marcus Rashford for what had gone on the side of the school meals plan. Fair play to him on that, for getting the government to U-turn. But of course, they're coming back from injuries and that. Pogba is apparently going to be on the bench for this game, not starting. But for Tottenham, an interesting stat for you. Spurs hadn't won a fixture before the coronavirus break since February. It was a 2-1 win against Aston Villa. But somehow they're only 2 points away from a Europa League spot.
It's because everyone else in the league is shit.
Like, everyone mad, isn't it?
European spots, bar Wolves, Sheffield United, who are probably overperforming. Everyone else has been shit. Like Chelsea have been underwhelming in the last half of the season. Man United were underwhelming at the first half of the season. Tottenham have just been underwhelming all season. So have Arsenal. None of those teams have been at their sparkling best. But for a team like Tottenham, it's a cup final for them, really.
It's crazy because, realistically speaking, has any of those sides you've mentioned actually been in form since last season? Because wasn't it we got to the Europa League, was it towards the end of the season last year where Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, they're all practically bottling it as well in terms of wins?
They're all throwing fourth to each other every single week. So, do you know what it is, right? Do you know when we talk about...
Sorry.
Sorry. Do you know when we talked about Bundesliga and we said, oh, it's a shame these teams are missing out on Europe. Here I'm thinking, you're lucky as to be appearing in Europe next season. Compared to, for example, Gladbach will miss out after a great season, but, Arsenal might sneak in.
I don't think they will.
No, will we?
Burnley and Crystal Palace are on the 1 point from Arsenal.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Oh, did he?
It's honestly between 6th and 12th, which is Everton, of course, Ancelotti's side. Be interested to see how they do as the season comes back. They're all separated by 5 points.
Yeah.
Or 6 points.
To be fair, it's literally what Kieran said. The league this year, bar Liverpool, bar Sheffield United, I'll put Wolves in there, have been shit. Honest to God. Go on.
I was just going to agree with your point and say it's been awful, hasn't it?
Yeah,
realistically
Kieran
speaking.
put it exactly right. I mean, the fact that we're still talking about, the thing is, it's a bit unfair that we're not talking about Burnley Crystal Palace, considering they're only one. You know what? Cenk Tosun at Crystal Palace for Champions League football, even though he got sent back because he's injured. But
the thing is, out of all of the runnings, I'm pretty sure that Man United have got the easiest running, because after Tottenham and Sheffield United, I don't think we play a team in the top half until we play Leicester, which is our last day of the season.
There's no easy runnings. Just because you look
a more favourable running then.
Yeah, so you look at somehow other Bundesliga teams have performed compared to Schalke, had a great start of the season and dropped off. Dortmund didn't look as strong as they were in the first couple of games. They came into their own, but they didn't look strong. I know Pep was talking about how some of his players are not fit. It's been 101 days since Manchester City's last game, and that could have a major effect. It's the first, one loss, because it's the first game, one loss could really affect how your season goes. And that's what's so exciting about sort of having this break, because these teams might come back completely different. United might come back even better because they've got no injuries. But Liverpool made their first game. Imagine if the first game they lose 1-0 and Salah's out, Henderson's out, Mane's out. Their big players get injured. It's probably not going to happen, but there will be fatigue there that could really flip it on its head.
Well, they have to play Everton. We haven't even talked about that.
No, that's what Josh said, though, isn't it? The fixture. I tell you what, it's it's what a weekend to come back to, really, in terms of I know it's been 101 days, I think Rowan just said, since the last fixture. So it's a bit crazy that we're coming back, and we've been spoilt really for the first couple of weeks. And the thing is with United, with their favourable running, though, I remember early part of the season, you were really poor, and then you played Liverpool off the park, which was not meant to happen. So it is favourable, but as Rowan said, you against smaller teams, sometimes you don't always show up. I remember Burnley at Old Trafford, they beat you somehow. with a J. Rodriguez, a screamer, left-footed. But, sometimes them smaller teams, they're just, every game's like, I don't know after this break whether some teams will be better or worse.
I've got to put my hands up and say I didn't even bloody realise Everton and Liverpool were playing this weekend. That just shows how many games there is. I didn't think they were playing till next week, but it really just...
The repeat of fixtures, do you remember when Amazon Prime had like the first round of fixtures in December?
Oh, well, that would explain why.
Also, in Sky Sports, this weekend, the games that are free to air are, if you've got Sky TV, Norwich Southampton is on Sky Pick, Bournemouth Palace is on BBC, Newcastle Sheffield is on free to air, and on Sky Pick, and so is the Merseyside derby.
I mean, what a game to have for free.
And then the rest of the free to air games are pretty dead. You got Brighton United, Bournemouth, Newcastle on Sky Pick.
All right.
Do you know what I feel like? Do you know after every game we'll all be scrambling through? We'll check BT. Is it on there? No. Then go to the BBC. Is it on there? No, it's not there either. And
that's the thing, is that there's so many places. If you look at the leagues across world football, they probably have 1 or 2 channels dedicated to those specific leagues. We have about 600. We have BT, we have Sky, BBC are now showing games, Amazon. We've got like 4 or 5 different channels that show games. It's mad. But in terms of these 2 games, of course, 101 days is a long, long time. I know that was the last time City played. So realistically, we could say about 96, 97 days. Doesn't feel like 96 or 97 days have gone by. But for these teams, specifically not even just for City or Arsenal, but it comes back to a point we made when we did the first episode when the Bundesliga came back. And I think it was Kieran Al, you said about it, is that injuries will happen. 100%. There will be injuries that will happen in these games. All it could take, for example, is Spurs to come back, Kane plays, and then he gets an injury tonight. On Friday. It could well truly happen, and your season goes from being, let's take Manchester United, for example. I hope it doesn't happen for any team. It'd be the worst thing to happen. But let's say Rashford came back on Friday and then picked up an injury. Your season can go from being, right, we've got all these players back and we're ready and raring to go to, Rashford's picked up an injury, maybe Wan-Bissaka's picked up a bit of a niggly injury. That means he's out for the next game. It can happen, and it's not just for the Premier League, of course. Look at when Bundesliga came back, there was a lot of injuries in that first kind of week or two, and it's taken them time to settle, but it could affect these sides massively. Of course, City, Arsenal play tonight at 8:15. I'm not taking predictions, as I said, seriously for these ones. We're going to keep our Bundesliga table rolling in the background. But what are you predicting for this game? Go on, Kimmy. I'll let you go first.
3-1 to City.
3-1 to City.
And he's robbed me scoreline again.
Kieran, what are you thinking?
From now on, let him go first.
No, it's fine. Don't react. Because what I was going to do is I might, because we're not taking this seriously, I might say Arsenal will give him a game. And sorry, Josh, I've just been scrolling here, and apparently, according to one of them Bible ones, which aren't the reliable sources, don't take Lads Bible and Sports Bible as reliable sources. Apparently, the Premier League are going to play walk-on music for subs. Please tell me that's not that. Oh dear.
Walk-on music for subs. What, like in wrestling?
Yeah. I put it in the. I put a picture of it in the chat yesterday.
Oh, dear.
When Jesse Lingard scores, if Jesse Lingard scores, he's gonna start dancing to some music that gets played through the stadium speakers.
That's for a goal, though. It's like I can't handle Jesse Lingard scoring and dancing, but if he's coming on as a sub and Millie rocking onto the pitch,
but he will do it. That is what will happen.
You're 6-0 down.
You can tell. You're telling me then that Danny Drinkwater could come on for Villa and have my time is now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Danny Drinkwater.
On the subs, it's just mystery. And then a player that's been for ages. Let's John Cena see music.
No, honestly, I really want. I want every player to come out to "It's time to play the game" because that's what they're going to do. He drink the water and spit. He's coming out.
I tell you what, I'm going to ask you a very random question. I want you to think the first song on the spot. What song would you add? What song would you have to come on?
Oh.
Mine's Space Jam theme song.
All right.
Mine's called Gasoline because it just screams "burn it all down," and I just want the players to themselves as this like booming music screaming "burn it all down" with screamer in the background.
I can't think of one.
I'm going to go with "Sexy Back" by Justin Timberlake because I'm going to have "Sexy Back" and just walk on the pitch.
R. Kelly, I Believe I Can Fly, would be another one.
You know what? Thrift shop. I'd walk onto the pitch with a massive coat on.
I just think it's the first line of that song, and I just think imagine coming on saying like, "What's up? I've got a massive."
Oh God!
Return of the Mac.
The thing is, in Orlando,
that song.
In Orlando, there is a roller coaster where you get to pick your music, and I always choose "I Will Survive" by Gloria Gaynor. So when I'm going down the hill, it screams "I Will Survive" just on time, so I will myself through. Thank you.
I'd love it if the players could pick their songs. I want just some nutter to pick something like, I don't know, like Ace of Spades by Mortar. Just have this music ringing out at the Etihad.
Living La Vida Loca, but the Shrek version.
Yes.
So when I bang I'd scream, it's Puss in Boots screaming "Living La Vida Loca."
Oh,
you know
God.
what? I hated this at first, but the things that, and imagine a subs coming on. What's Velveteen Dream doing debuting at the Etihad? It's unbelievable.
Oh God! But now that's what
he knows what's actually going on.
But now let's put something about the Spurs game, which I'll ask in a moment. Rowan, what are you predicting there for City v Arsenal?
Why not 7-4?
Goals.
I didn't give a prediction. I didn't even give a prediction.
Yeah, they haven't. Oh, what are you going to predict for it?
1-1. Why not?
1-1.
Go on, Arsenal.
So you're predicting 1-1. Rowan's predicting a 7-4. I'm going to predict 0-0.
Oh, nice.
Someone's got to be boring. I'll be the boring one. I'll predict a 0-0.
The Arsenal fans on Twitter, if they get a draw out of City, they will love it. They will never shut up about it. Remember when they drew with Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, and they just didn't shut up about it?
But, to be fair, at least they can't do what Liverpool did with a draw to West Brom and go over to the Kop end and start giving their arms, like going over to an empty away end.
Oh God!
Get out, man.
Well, that's the first game. Of course, that kicks off at 8:15 tonight, so not too long to go for that one. Of course, the other game is Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. That kicks off in about 20 minutes' time. The other game, as we said, is Spurs versus Manchester United. Both teams will be desperate to try and get a Europa League spot. We've talked about this one very briefly. Brunel says, I want to be optimistic for Spurs, but I don't know if we can handle a fully fit United. United could win this 2-1. And then Chris has said, City 3, Arsenal 0. Comfortable win for City, no problem. As a Manchester United fan, Kieran, are you optimistic for this game, or are you a bit nervous for this one?
I hate it when we're the favourites in a big tie, because we never win, but, I mean, if we continue how we were playing before the break definitely came at the wrong time for us, because we were on form, we were smashing teams, we were smashing goals, and but we've got Pogba back, we've got Rashford back, everyone's looking sharp in training. I just hope we just don't underperform, to be fair, because everyone's really excited, like the Man United fan. We're all really excited to go back, and we're excited to see our best players back fully fit, because we have got a good team when everyone's fully fit. It's just going to be underwhelming when we draw 1-1 or don't beat Spurs, who are really, really crap. No offence, Ronaldo.
Well, I'm going to ask for your predictions for this one. Go on then, Kieran. I'll let you go first this time, so Kieran D can't score.
No, because I don't have a scoreline, so don't come to me first. I'm still thinking.
All right then, go on, KD.
3-0.
3-0 to United.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So maybe that probably hasn't helped you, Kieran, at all.
No. I'm not going to say I was thinking of that scoreline because I wasn't. But Man United still, for me, defensively aren't quite there yet. The addition of Harry Maguire has definitely helped. But luckily, with Spurs with Mourinho in charge, I don't think they'll be doing much attacking anyway. So I'll go with 0-0.
Prick.
0-0.
How's that? That's a good one.
I want to draw 0-0.
I'll chuck in my prediction. Give Ron a bit of time to think about the score in his head. I'm going to go 3-1 United.
Wow.
I said it before we started the stream. I said to Kieran, I think that this United side, if it stays fit and if it can get going, I think they could get on a good run of form. And teams like Spurs, for example, Spurs need a major rebuild, in my opinion. I think, of course, next season they definitely need fullbacks. Ben Davies and Serge Aurier for a top 6 side, realistically speaking, which what Spurs are pretty shambolic. Aurier's terrible, in my opinion. He's not good. Of course, we've seen he doesn't care about the coronavirus stuff as well, having a haircut. I think he was caught 2 or 3 times coming out of lockdown. But I just think Spurs this season have been very, very lackluster. And yeah, I think 3-1 United.
At least it was only a haircut and he didn't sail back to his country like bloody Smollo.
Oh, God. Rowan, what are you feeling for this one?
I'm going to go 4-3 Spurs. I genuinely think that it will be a good game. Like Kieran said, United are on top form, but I don't know. I've just got a sneak feeling it's going to end up 3-3 in the 90th minute. Someone just scores from a last-minute goal, and I've gone for Spurs. I just feel like they're going to eke out a win somehow.
What was the score of this game last time?
We won 2-1.
2-1.
I think United, as much as I take the piss out of him and call him the Portuguese Milivojevic, they do look a different team with Bruno Fernandes. He has that creativity that no really other player on Man United's team possesses. In terms of, they've been playing players like Jesse Lingard can play, Andres Pereira. Maybe was trying to be that creative spark, but he never really was. And he has helped. I mean, he is still the Portuguese Milivojevic. Don't get me wrong, but I think what United are missing to really challenge, I think they need still a defensive midfielder to replace Matic, and one more quality centre-back. And I think, to be fair, this Man United team, I think they could really challenge next year. And maybe I'm going a bit ahead of myself, but I really do believe they just need a little bit more strength and they'll be right up there.
Do you think Solskjaer would be the right man to lead them on?
You're probably best asking Kieran that rather than me, because I remember we were rather harsh on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at the start of the season. Josh, I'm pretty sure we called him tactically inept. We said
I think we did, yeah.
I think we said he's useless. Probably we threw that in there a couple of times. My thing is, some managers are good tactically, but they're not good people. Do you know Jurgen Klopp has both? He can tactically win the game, but he can also motivate his team. I think Solskjaer's still much more of a motivator than a tactics person. But once he gets a few more players, he might be able to tweak it tactically a bit more. Is he the man? What do you mean? Is he the man to get him top 4, or is he the man to win him the title? What are you asking me? Go on, which one?
It's tough, that, because I was thinking just more of a case of, is he the man to get them challenging for a title?
Do you know what? Yes, because people seem to have bought in to him as a human being. Maybe not tactically, but I mean, look how long Sir Alex was in charge. He had a really crap start to his managerial tenure. He could have been sacked quite easily. But once they bought into him and his style of management, and he was obviously one of the greatest tactical, I truly believe he's the best ever. There will be no one like Sir Alex. So I think if everyone buys in, I think there's a few players that I think need to truly give him their all still, because they don't seem to give him their all. But once they do, yeah, go on, yeah, he can be, yeah. That's my answer. I waffled, but it was my answer, yeah.
Well, there we go. We've got our predictions in for these games, of course. Spurs versus Manchester United is on Friday, and as I said, City Arsenal is on tonight. We're going to move to the Bundesliga now. Of course, this league's been going for a couple of weeks. I picked out 2 games for this one again. We're at crunch time in the Bundesliga. Some teams have got 2 fixtures left. Some teams have got 3. Some are actually playing tonight, of course. A couple of good games going on in the background. I think, as Kieran said before, Dortmund and Leipzig are both playing tonight. But this game is against each other. That's Saturday at 2:30. And then the other fixture I picked out is Mainz versus Werder Bremen. We'll talk about Dortmund versus Leipzig first here. Now, it's a very, very big game. Of course, it's reaching its conclusion now. This game could see Dortmund secure a Champions League spot, or it could make things very, very interesting and Leipzig try and push Dortmund for second place. Of course, these sides have done really, really well this season. If we look at the table, Dortmund are on 66 points, Leipzig are on 62. So a win for them. Of course, they're still playing tonight, so maybe it could be a little bit different in a couple of hours' time. But if they do both win tonight, or maybe Dortmund win and Leipzig drop points, maybe Dortmund might secure it tonight. But in terms of as the table stands, as of now, before 6 o'clock, 66 points for Dortmund, 62 for Leipzig. It's a very, very tricky game of football. If Leipzig win, it also means they have guaranteed a Champions League spot. And I'm pretty sure it means Dortmund will have secured it as well. So realistically speaking, a win for Leipzig is a win for everybody in the sense of a Champions League spot. But if Dortmund win and Leipzig drop points, Gladbach have a great opportunity to get back into it. Now, Leipzig play tonight, and they are playing against Dusseldorf, which is a big relegation battle. So you would assume you'd expect Leipzig to pick up points. As for Dortmund tonight, they're playing against Mainz. Once again, big fixture towards the bottom of the table. In the terms of the game, both sides are guaranteed a European position, no matter what now. But in the sense of the match, it's still a big, big game on paper. Is this an easy one to call, or do we think this is going to be a blockbuster of a game between the both sides?
I don't think it'll be a blockbuster, because as much as we'll try and convince ourselves there's a lot on the line, but these two have secured it, really. It's Gladbach v Leverkusen for that final spot. So I don't think it'll have the firecrackers that it would have had all the 5 teams been a little bit closer. But I'm sure it'll still be a good game. Both sides have got quality. Should be a good one to watch.
Well, me and Kieran were saying yesterday that we don't know if Timo Werner's going to play for the rest of the season after coming out and taking himself out of the registration for the Champions League games that Leipzig got to play in August just to get his move to Chelsea. We were saying that they haven't got an out-and-out goal scorer to the quality of Timo Werner in their squad, like Patrick Schick and Yusuf Poulsen. You'd expect maybe about 20 goals out of them combined in a season.
It's going to be a big rebuild for Leipzig because if we move away from Timo Werner for a second, of course, he's off to Chelsea this season. Leipzig had a clause with Patrick Schick. He's on loan from AS Roma. The option to buy was 29 million euros. Nagelsmann came out yesterday and said we won't pay that money because we haven't got it, which is the biggest, trolliest comment that I've ever seen. It's as if maybe Roma have been living under a rock and haven't just seen they've just gained 50 million from Timo Werner. But if they lose Schick, on top of course, losing Werner, they technically only have one recognised striker in Yusuf Poulsen, in terms of a big striker named player. In terms of a rebuild for Leipzig, it's a hard one because does anyone not think that... I look at Leipzig and I think, if they're going to bring in a big striker, I don't think they could bring anyone massive in because they're not a big club in stature. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. I just mean, if you look at clubs that linger around the top 4 of a Champions League spot across Europe, they all have history behind them, apart from Man City. Dortmund, Bayern's, Roma's, Napoli's, those types of sides that get into the Champions League have history. And I just can't see Leipzig getting a big striker in if they have to sign one.
Because a lot of people will know that Red Bull have got money. They are obviously the Leipzig, but Red Bull is one of their main funders. If you look at also all the other Red Bull sides, like sides that so Red Bull Salzburg, look at their talent pool they bring up. Easy to just transfer one of them players over. But if you look at F1, Red Bull are one of the richest teams. I think they're the 3rd richest team. Yet drivers will go to them because they know that if they go Sting, first of all, they get a nice budget. They know that this team can afford to put money in. And it's probably the same with the football teams. A striker, some players probably won't care about legacy because they could be that big name for that club. They could go there and say, well, I want a nice wage packet, but I also want to play around a good team. They've already got some very decent players already in that squad. And they probably, if let's say they bring in a named striker for a decent amount, they will still have money left where they could bolster other positions that would suit that striker. And also, Yusuf Poulsen isn't bad.
He's not bad on his day, not at all.
I think that Leipzig are in a good position, to be fair. No, go on.
I was just going to say, Josh slagged Yusuf Poulsen off for like 90 minutes straight the other week. I'm not having him calling him
I knew he was going to say that, but I'm going to back up my point saying, look at the amount of goals he scored last season. And everyone can have a bad day. Everyone can have a bad day.
Sorry, Kieran, I cut you off. Do continue, sorry.
I was going to say, I think Leipzig are in a good position because they're going to get Champions League football. They're going to have space for a striker in the squad. They're a team that scores a lot of goals. They create a lot of chances. They've got really good midfield players which can play all around the park. They've got defenders who can play all across the back four. They'll probably move one of the midfielders up to play at striker at some point. They've got a really versatile squad, and they're in a really good position, I think, to get a striker that's willing to look at a project and go forward, because their aim is to win the Bundesliga. That's always going to be their aim, and probably kick on in the Champions League a bit as they have this season. But I think they are in a good spot to get a good striker next year. And it's going to be interesting to see who the targets are.
Got a lot of they've got a lot of cash behind them, of course.
Upamecano's leaving possibly as well, isn't it? Which is another big loss. Obviously, you've got sort of his understudies that have been playing beside McClellan and Canate, so that triple French connection. But you're going to need to bring in, if Werner and Upamecano go, you need to bring in two players who can slot into that team and take sort of charge. You know what I mean?
This is my not my problem with the Bundesliga, but apart from Bayern Munich, the other teams at some point need to stop viewing themselves as we're going to build young players and sell them on, because they're never going to reach. There's one team in the Bundesliga that doesn't build young players and sell them on. It's Bayern Munich, because yes, they've got Alphonso Davies, but I don't see them selling him anytime soon. Whereas Dortmund, we always talk about, look, they built Hakimi, he's leaving. Look, they built up Jadon Sancho, he's leaving. They built Lewandowski, he left. They built Aubameyang, he left. Apart from Royce, Goetze left. Apart from Royce, and then Leipzig are the same. They've built Upamecano to who he is, leaving. They've built Werner, he's leaving. So these teams in the Leipzig, I agree with you in the sense that, Josh, I just can't view them buying I'm just going to throw a name, Immobile, because he scores goals. I don't think they'll do that. I think they're more likely going to look at someone like Alexander Isak, who's younger, but he's proven enough to kind of come in. But there's got to be a point in the Bundesliga where these teams underneath start going, let's buy these big name players because we have to, because there's only so much a young team can do, and hence why we might have seen these players drop off is the average age of their squad. They've not really been in a tense title race. They're too young to really understand, whereas Munich have experience mixed with that youth, which makes them such a dominant force. And that's my only problem with the Bundesliga. It's like everyone's a project apart from Bayern Munich.
Is Nkunku there on permanent, or is he loaned?
He's a permanent signing.
I was about to say, cause that's a player that they can't afford to lose, but if he is a loan, keep him in, because he's been great for them this season.
You look how many he's got this season, though. He's been a really influential player for him. He fits in well with what Nagelsmann likes to play as well, because he can play pretty much anywhere along the midfield, behind the striker, in front of the back four.
He even plays as a winger sometimes.
Yeah, and he can abandon his defensive duties, whereas if he played centre mid, I say that the deepest lying player for Leipzig is Sabitzer, and Sabitser's not a centre mid, he's a cam. So
I think that's playing.
Yeah, literally. I mean, Konrad Laimer is really good. I do rate Konrad Laimer quite highly, the Austrian centre mid, and he's one of the shuttler box to box players. But at least I think Nkunku's at PSG, he wouldn't have had the freedom to do what he does in this Leipzig team. He can he's one of them, a bit like, David Silva at Man City. You'll put him and he'll find the pockets of space and create stuff. Whereas at PSG, I don't think he'd have been allowed to do that.
Of course, one player we're actually all forgetting, Dani Olmo, scored a brace not too long ago for Leipzig. Good little player on his day.
Yeah. That's another one, isn't it? That's another young player that they'll sign, probably build up, and then they'll sell him.
Yeah, that's literally it, because I think Nkunku won't be around for too long. He has a season like he had this year. Next year, he's gone, probably. So I do think
signing Dani Olmo is, and he'll just leave at the end of next season.
Yeah, literally.
We talked about sort of Bayern having that mixture of youth and what's the other word?
Experience.
But Dortmund have got that in terms of Axel Witsel, Emre Can, Hummels, Piszczek. Your four thingies, but they're surrounded by Hazard, Brandt, Sancho, and Hakimi currently. but you do look at Dortmund's bench, and you've got a couple of youth players. I think this sort of next 3 seasons is the time where Dortmund do keep these young players they've got, but properly start them. So you've got Gio Reyna, who's nominated for Young Player of the Year, Golden,
European Golden Boy.
Yeah. Then you've got Belerde, More, and there's another one. He's injured though. And so if they now, when they lose Hakimi, Sancho, if they can bring some of these 19-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 17, 18, 19-year-olds in, sort of like the NFL do, sort of tank their seasons to give these young players more playing experience.
But there's still
sort of turn to themselves as a Bayern.
Yeah, they're still a selling club. That's the problem with Dortmund, the selling club. Hummels came back past his prime. I know he was brilliant this year, don't get me wrong, but if they'd have had him at peak Hummels time, they sold him before that. Erling Haaland has got how many years at Dortmund before he's sick of not winning titles? Because that's what I think.
Another year and a half.
Exactly. It's like these. I love Dortmund, don't get me wrong, but this is 8 seasons in a row where they've been competitive, and it's always maybe this will be their year, but they just sell their best players. Go on.
I think that Dortmund will really struggle next year if they don't replace Sancho. Like you see, he's got 20 goals. He's probably going to get 20 goals, 20 assists this year if he has a good end to these last 2 games. You're thinking, take that out of Dortmund's side. Take 17 goals and 17 assists out of their side. Who's getting that out of their team? Like I know Gio Reyna is good, but he's not getting 17 goals, 17 assists a season.
No, I like what Dortmund did this summer with signing Thorgan Hazard and Julian Brandt, because they're still young, but they've been in the Bundesliga for multiple years. So I do wonder whether they'll look elsewhere, like maybe look at a Gladbach and try and get some of their players, maybe look at Leverkusen. But again, there are other teams that sell. Gladbach, God help them, they've not really got any really influx of money, yet they just they buy players when they aren't very good. I think we talked about this, Kieran D, last night. They signed Ben Sabini, and look how good he's been. They signed Marcus Thuram, Alassane Plia, and made them. So I just don't see anyone toppling Bayern because everyone's a selling club apart from Bayern Munich.
So we've gone from 2 teams that are fighting it out at the top to now 2 teams that might go from being toppling to being toppled themselves. Mainz and Werder Bremen. We go from top to bottom. I think personally, my opinion, depending on the results tonight, this is the game of the week out of any of the games I'm about to say, because of course we've talked about the Bundesliga for a couple of weeks now, and Mainz and Werder Bremen, and how the way that the bottom of the league has gone is like just a crazy roller coaster that doesn't seem to want to end. Mainz are currently 15th on 31 points. Above them is Augsburg, Cologne. They're on 35 points. Sorry to say, Kieran L, Union Berlin have survived to live another day.
I said this last night. I said honestly, I've willed them to go down. The moment they won against Cologne on the weekend, I just went, damn it, they've definitely survived. So I'm sorry to Union.
If you look at the teams below Mainz, Dusseldorf and Werder Bremen are both on 28 points. And Mainz and Werder Bremen face off against each other on Saturday. Of course, we spoke about it earlier. Werder Bremen battered Paderborn 5-1 last week in what should surely be a massive morale booster for the club. They've been ridiculously fantastic since they've come back from the break, but there's been little results here and there that they've, of course, lost out on. Mainz themselves, of course, they're still surviving. They won against Frankfurt 2-0. That was a big win on the 6th of June, but they lost against Augsburg, one of the teams that they really needed to win to cement their survival. They play against Dortmund tonight, which realistically speaking is very unlikely in the sense of their pickup results.
Go on,
Ron.
Did you know when we talk about Dortmund Leipzig, these 2 games are so pivotal on both sides, because obviously, Frankfurt have also just gone 1-0 up against Schalke. Adrian Silva scored. But yeah, like Dusseldorf have got Leipzig, Mainz have got Dortmund. If Dusseldorf and Mainz could pick up at least a point from these 2 games, Werder Bremen's job is a lot harder coming into Saturday.
But what would make it even more interesting is if Werder Bremen win. Then they're both on the same points and it's down to goal difference.
This could be an absolute classic, this. because it might actually bring Werder Bremen out of that defensive shell they've been in these past couple of weeks, where they try and eke out 1-0 wins. They could actually, imagine if Mainz and Dusseldorf won tonight against Dortmund and Leipzig. It's probably unlikely, but if they get anything, even a draw, Mainz absolutely shithouse it, get a 1-0 win, get a 1-0 draw, 0-0. Imagine the game, Mainz and Werder Bremen, both teams going for it. It could be an absolute classic, that match on Saturday, which I'm really jealous that Kieran's watching it.
Sorry, I had to dibs it. I've been down the bottom of the league with Paderborn. I've been eyeing up every other team, seeing how they've done. And this truly is, I think, the finale of the season in terms of the relegation battle. Because I think we talked last night, Kieran, because Werder had Bayern, Dusseldorf have got Leipzig, Mainz have Borussia Dortmund, so they kind of took this week as, like a hit week. They were going to lose anyway, so it didn't matter. So this game on the weekend is where it's at.
It's such a big game, and of course, on the side, we still have to speak about Dusseldorf, who they're on 28 points as well. Of course, as it currently stands, they sit in the relegation playoff spot. Their next game is against Leipzig tonight, but then they face Augsburg and Union Berlin, two teams that very easily they could beat on the day.
They could. They could. I think we were talking, and Mainz is running apart from this game. Because if they lose this game, I think Werder are on level points with Mainz, if I'm not mistaken.
They will be, indeed.
Yeah, but then Mainz go and face Leverkusen on the final week, and Leverkusen have got it all to play for. So let's be fair, Mainz probably won't beat Leverkusen. So if they don't win this, they could find themselves going and dropping into the relegation playoff, if not that final spot.
It's a very, very interesting game, and I mean, both games are just ridiculously interesting on paper, and it's going to be exciting to find out what happens. In terms of Dortmund on Leipzig, I'll ask for your predictions now. Katie, what do you think for Dortmund v Leipzig?
I think it's going to be a game. Lots of goals. I'm going to go 3-2 to Dortmund.
3-2 Dortmund. Kieran?
Yeah. 1-1.
I'm going to go 2-2. I do feel I agree with you, Kieran. I think that'll be goals. Rowan?
4-3.
4-3. So we are thinking there's going to be a lot of goals in the games. As for Mainz versus Werder Bremen, what are we thinking for this one? This is a very tough one. Kieran D.
3-1 to Mainz.
Wow.
3-1 to Mainz. Wow. Kieran L.
I am honest to God, I'm not even stalling. I have literally no clue.
I'll go for one. I know.
Yeah, I've got no idea.
I'll go 2-1 to Werder Bremen. Sorry.
I'm gonna go 3-1 Werder Bremen. This is a tricky one. Kieran L.
Well, Kieran thinks Aston Villa Sheffield United has kicked off.
Yeah.
Perfect.
2-0 Mainz.
2-0 Mainz. We've all really two apiece. 2 for Werder Bremen, 2 for Mainz. It's going to be a great game of football. And the great thing is you'll be able to join the boys for the Bundesliga watch along. That's going to be Saturday at 2:15. I'll talk a little bit more that later on. But I mean, Kieran, now you've got a fantastic position of being able to watch this game. It's going to be exciting to find out what happens.
Yeah.
Now we're going to move on to the final game of the week. I think this is one we'll very briefly talk over. Of course, there is a game going on in La Liga this week. There's 2 big fixtures. One of them was Real Madrid and Valencia. I haven't picked this one out because first plays third. Barcelona plays Sevilla. We talked about these 2 teams last week. They both won their games. They're now facing off against each other. That's on Friday. Once again, another good game on Friday. 9 p.m. UK time for this one. Barcelona, top of the league, of course, 4-0 win against Mallorca. Fantastic result. Sevilla currently leading the pack in terms of the teams below Real Madrid and Barcelona right now. The rest of the teams below them did drop points pretty much at the weekend. It's a tough game, this one, because, of course, Barcelona desperately need to pick up every single point that they can get because, of course, we saw at the weekend Real Madrid also won their game. And this will be another league that I think will go right down to the wire in terms of whether Barca or Real wins this. Of course, Real have got a game in hand. They play their game tomorrow, which is against Valencia at 9 o'clock. As for Sevilla, they're 4 points ahead of 4th place, but Real Sociedad have a game in hand. Tricky game, this one. Very tricky game once again. But who do you think is going to come out on top?
This game is probably the most... Sorry, I was going to say this game is the most intense one. I think it comes down to that Real Madrid game, the game in hand. Because if Madrid pick up the win again in the game in hand, 29 games played each. If Sevilla can eke a win out here, that puts sort of cement in their third, but also it gives Real Madrid that prime opportunity to bump themselves up to first. Like
it's a tough game because the thing is for Sevilla, they can look at this and think, well, this is a great opportunity to not just squander Barcelona's title challenge and put Real Madrid back into the driving seat, but it also means that they can go potentially 4 or 5 points ahead of fourth place and start to not relax, but look towards the Champions League. They can't necessarily be like, right, that's it, we're all done. We've got the 3 points against Barca, we're done. But they have a little comfortable margin between the rest of the sides.
I'd like to believe that, but I think Barca and Real are just so far above everyone else in the league this year, in my opinion anyway. I know Sevilla have done really well, but I if I'm choosing standout teams, I'm choosing the other two every single day, and I just don't see this one being as close as I'd like it to be.
I'll go, bless you, Ron. I'll go for predictions for this one. I think this is a tough game. Kieran D, what we're going for this one? Barca versus Sevilla.
3-0 to Barca.
3-0 to Barca. Okay, I like that. Kieran L?
I was going with 3-1.
Barcelona all the way so far. I'm going to go for a 2-2. I think Sevilla might nick a point, I'm not going to lie. Rowan, how are you feeling?
1-0 Sevilla.
1-0 Sevilla. I like it. I tell you what, some very, very good mixed opinions throughout this games of the week. A lot of different predictions in there. Of course, the Bundesliga ones. Be interested to find out what happens in there. But that is the games of the week. I mean, there's other games that are going on in the background. Of course, there is the final going on tonight between Juventus and Napoli, which is, I think, is it 8 o'clock kickoff for that one?
Yeah.
8 o'clock kickoff for that one. As I said, there's already a game going on right now, which is Villa versus Sheffield United. Man City going on. Bundesliga's playing tonight. There's just so many games. Everton, Liverpool, we haven't even had time to talk about. We spoke about that very briefly. In terms of tonight, Coppa Italia, Juventus versus Napoli, the game that I didn't put on there. Who do you think's going to win that one?
Juventus.
I reckon Napoli,
I'm with Kieran. I saw both. We watched both teams the other night. Napoli actually looked good.
Yeah, Juventus looked really sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
I thought. So I'm going to say
I watched a little bit of that AC Milan game, of course, Rebic with the just crazy red card. They didn't look at the pace, did they? As you'd expect them to. But Napoli, it's their only cup competition they're left in, apart from the Champions League. Of course, they actually still have to face Barcelona for the second leg, which they currently lead. So they could even get through that. But I think Juventus will win it. I think they'll be comfortable enough to take points in that. So there's the games of the week. It's a lot of good games, and I think it's pretty much going to be the same way every single week. We're going to have 5 or 6 ridiculous fixtures, and we're going to have others where we're going to look and think, well, we've missed out on them. But in the meantime, of course, as I said before, the Bundesliga watch-along continues. We're towards the final 2 match days. So the standout fixtures that the boys will be looking at are Dortmund-Leipzig, Mainz and Werder Bremen, of course, the 2 big ones we just talked about a moment ago. And Dusseldorf versus Augsburg, it'll probably be one of the games that they'll look at in the background. 9 games, expect plenty of goals as all the sides of the Bundesliga take control of whether they get points or not. Of course, who knows what's going to happen.
We'll definitely keep you updated with every single goal that goes in, because I think we'll have all the half 2 games definitely covered, and then we'll probably have some of the 3 p.m. games also covered in the background in terms of just like score updates, if there's any first half or early second half goals.
It's going to be mad. There's going to be a lot of goals, hopefully, and a lot of dramatic moments, of course, for 6 of the sides on the screen, especially for the bottom 2 that we've got there, Mainz, Bremen, Dusseldorf and Augsburg. And then in the meantime as well, on Twitch, you can keep your eyes out for the Euro tournament. It's still going on. Highlights are available on YouTube every single day. We continue on tomorrow. It's 6 p.m. tomorrow night, not 3 p.m. Denmark, Belgium, Ukraine, Romania, Netherlands versus Austria. You don't want to miss out on that. So that's it for the podcast this week. I just want to say a very big thank you to Kieran D, Rowan, and Kieran L, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Josh.
But of course, in the meantime, go on.
Kieran, both Kierans have got the teams back, haven't
they? Have indeed, yeah.
To watch.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. I tried to forget, to be honest with you.
The boys are back in town.
But yeah, no, the boys really are back in town. We'll be back next week. Of course, you can keep your eyes out. They're on the bottom there in the banner. Monday, the Wrestling Corner. Wednesday, the Top Corner. NFL Corner. Whenever it wants to be.
I leave it at that. I can't even back myself to be like, yeah.
Oh, sure. Thank you very much, lads. Once again, we'll see you Wednesday next week, 5 p.m. UK time. But in the meantime, have a great rest of the week. See you later.